Dear ladies and gentlemen, you are kindly invited to the conference organized by me. I am Mr. Nikolai Barekov, member of the European Parliament and a member in Bureau European Conservator and Reformist. I am member in delegation for relationship between European Parliament and Islam Republic Iran. The agenda of this conference consists 4 points. The role of the Quds in the intensification of the terrorism in the Middle East. The first point, Iran and the Middle East, the time which has changed everything in a few years. What is the position of our guest, a witness of the events? In what state of mind are Iranians today? The second point, should we believe in sectarianism spirit? 3 points. Can we tolerate a viral propaganda of sects in Europe? And the last point, but this is the important point, fight against the terrorism. Because terrorism is the threat to security, freedom, and human values. We have 5 speakers. I show them. We have 3 guests. Mr. Dawud Arshot, Mr. Issa Azadeh, and Mr. Ali Hussein Nژاد. They are our guests from Europe. They live in Europe. We have 2 guests and speakers from Bulgaria, 2 people, 2 men who live in Bulgaria and understanding these problems very deep. Mr. Nikola Mitev and Mr. Harry Hamdan. I have little introduce in Bulgarian language, please. And after my introduce, every speaker have 10 minutes for our main ideas and thesis. This is 1 hour. And second hour, we have free, open, I hope, very freedom discussions, questions and answers. In these main issues, they consist in our speeches. I hope that my guests today outspoken speakers of this problem. Don't remember, I was former journalist. I speak Bulgarian. Уважаеми гости.
Dear guests, dear colleagues, thank you for being with me here this morning. I would like to open this conference. Within this session of today, we are going to analyze the reports of one of the most knowledgeable experts in the area of the Middle East, terrorism and cultural interrelations. Representing the bordering east for the European country like Bulgaria, with a great ethnic and cultural variety, I am happy to host this event. For the people, the members of the European Union, it is very important to survey in depth the problem with growing threat of terrorist action. In today's time, the freedom and sovereignty and the rights of European citizens are under threat from internal and external factors for which values and traditions are valid, although different from the European values. They are the marker for identity for peoples. And I am positive that the variety and the is an asset rather than shortcoming. And this is why it is important to look in the sources of conflict and set the emphasis on communication between the people from the European Union and the people where there are sources of violence. And we can discuss the terrorist action, the causes and the reasons. We have developed the Stockholm program, the anti-terrorist strategy of the European Union at the European level, etc. The communities have taken measures to prevent terrorist activity with biometric data in the private documents, banking control for doubtful transactions to potential cells, and strengthening the work of Europol. Also, we are going to speak about the sociological to overcome the sects in Europe and as measures of fighting terrorism. This was my expose. And I will give you a personal opinion.
The first speakers. Behind terrorism stay not religious issues, not political issues, only economical and social issues. This is my deep opinion for this problem. Давам думата на първия ни.
I give the floor to our first speaker, Mr. Dawud Arshot.
Welcome.
Ladies and gentlemen, we would like.
Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, we would like to thank Mr. Nikolai Baranov, the European Parliament member, to invite us to the European Parliament, to the heart of democracy. That has been an example for people like me and my friends who are here and those who are not here and they are in Iran and around the world, to dedicate our 4 decades of our life to achieve democracy for our country. Democracy and freedom was and has been the only reason justified joining people like us or groups that claim to be seeking democracy. Since achievement of this precious goal can only be valued if achieved collectively. In this context, we left our best lives we had in Europe and joined the Mujahideen Khalq, a group that claimed to be seeking democracy, led by Masoud Rajavi in 1979. But unfortunately, later we found ourselves betrayed and trapped in a dangerous terrorist cult group. Therefore, we welcome this opportunity at the heart of democracy to correct our path to democracy and freedom and declare our split from a dangerous terrorist cult that support ISIS and Taliban in our region. Everybody in Europe is witnessing a new phenomenon around the world, and surprisingly, in the West too. That is expansion of terrorism from isolated regions to around the world. As far as we have witnessed, the terrorist organizations have lived for long, but recently, in the last decade, they have changed face, and they are trying to deceive the Western democracy in order to infiltrate into these societies, and then to show their real, when they have their grip in this society, they show their face. This has been the policy of the organization that we joined 40 years ago. This was our official strategic policy to hide our anti-democratic natures, our anti-Western culture nature, to achieve power, and then having achieved power, to show the real face and fight with Western democracy. And this is exactly what is nowadays happening. And as you have seen, their actions, their terrorism, and also on other side, their political activities, that we have even witnessed that their leaders, they can still come to European Parliament and make speeches in the hope of deceiving the Western democracy in order to achieve power, for instance, in my country, and having got the power and the money, and then show their real face. What has exactly happened with ISIS, that having gained financial support, military support from, for the false cause of fighting against dictatorship, now having got all this support, now they have showed their real face. And using every means in order to fight and to destroy all the human values, democracy, freedom, all around the world. And it's not even confined to a piece of land. They are everywhere. And they are threatening even the basic security of every individual. Even the innocent people, they don't care about nothing whatsoever unless reaching the power and actually, as my dear friend, Mr. Nikolai Baranov has said, the money which brings the power in the name of different religions, especially at this time, which is called Islam. We have been Muslims for years, but we do not recognize such a barbarism, such a violence, and inhuman acts under any religion. These groups, including the organization, we have now split it and declared that we have every means to disclose their real nature, have never thought of such violence. We used to use this Islam in order to deceive ordinary people, to bring them into what we actually wanted them to do. We use Islam to convince, to justify all our violent, barbaric, and terrorist activities, to give them the justification to kill, to behead in the name of Allah, because otherwise no human being can act such acts of violence into such an extent, because to do so you must first leave your humanitarian values to act into such an extent of violence. So, for the leaders who are seeking power and money, they use every means. And they have not hesitated to use the name of God, the name of the Prophet, Quran, the holy books, and whatever they could in order to convince or to deceive the people, or especially young people, everywhere, in my country, in Europe, everywhere nowadays, to bring these people into the acts of violence. Therefore, we must nowadays, previously, the threats was from the government for the human rights violations, but nowadays, unfortunately, this has dramatically changed. The governments were confined to territories, but the terrorism nowadays is not confined to anything. They are everywhere. Therefore, we must quickly change our fight to keep our democracy, our freedom, the human values in the world, in the West, and everywhere. We must be very, very quick acting. We should recognize the terrorism that has changed face. In our case, Mujahideen, recently, for an example, recently Masoud Rajavi, the leader of the Mujahideen, in an open statement to his members, have declared killing of all dissident members in Europe, in the United States. It is shocking, it is astonishing that how in Europe a cult leader can call for the killing of dissident members. That means the members must chase the dissident members and kill them anywhere they can. This is what the real face of terrorism is. Or even inside the organization, they are using every means. They have cut off the members from every means of communication with outside world. This is how they can manipulate people in order to commit acts of violence. They have cut all the means of communication. No telephone sets, no mobiles, no internet, no TV, nothing, not even news. So only those who are being manipulated, they can only hear what the cult leaders or the terrorist leaders are telling them, false information, in order to motivate them to do what they can. And they set up courts inside their organizations in order to punish those who would seek anything but the orders of the leaders of these terrorist organizations. So that's why we are here to announce that to put an end to this sort of terrorism that is now expanding around the world, and they have unfortunately bases in Paris. A few years ago, when their leader was arrested by the order of the leaders, they committed acts of self-killings by putting fire on themselves on the streets of Paris. That is only why they didn't act on the French citizens, just because the leader was in Paris, in West, at the reach of the law. If they had committed this act against the French citizens, their leader would have been arrested and be tried for these terrorism. They would, when the man who kills himself on the street would do that against everybody else when they have the means, when the leader is not at the reach of law. And the Western democracy must pinpoint these terrorist cells and fight and stop them from spreading. Those who misuse the freedom and democracy in the West in order to act against it. So we ask the European democracy, the European Parliament officials, to recognize, to open the eyes to these violent and terrorist threats that is threatening the human values, democracy and freedom all around the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Arshad. This is Mr. Dawud Arshad. I deep believe, Mr. Arshad, that European Parliament is keep territory for freedom, for outspoken speech for this problem of terrorism, of human rights. We have very clean evidence. Translator in how?
Yes.
Wait, the wonderful translator Mariana Hill. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm ready.
با سلام و تشکر از حضار محترم و نمایندگان پارلمان اروپا، مخصوصا آقای نیکولای باریکوف که ما رو به این کنفرانس دعوت کرد و این فرصت رو به ما جداشدگان از سازمان مجاهدین خلق ایران، این چند نفری که ما به عنوان
Okay, you hear me now? It's okay? Okay, all right. Thank you very much for everyone here, especially Mr. Breco, that invited us here today. And give us a time that we could give us our voice and hear our voice behalf of thousands of members of MEK that they were separated from organization, that they could hear us. That after 40 years I could be here and talk to you. My name is Ali Hussein Nژاد. I was a member of MEK for over 35 years. And I am like my colleague here. I joined this organization hoping that we could have freedom and democracy for our homeland, Iran. But 2.5 years ago, when they were transferring me
last month in Paris with very tragic, very enormous terroristic act. Thank you. The second.
Our second speaker.
My friend from Bulgaria, Mr. Hari Hamdan. Welcome.
Mr. Barekov, ladies and gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, dear guests, in order to understand better what happens in the Middle East and what were the reasons to strengthen terrorist activity in Europe and in the US, it is necessary to go back in time. We're not talking about the last 4 or 5 years. We're talking about decades previously, because the Middle East slept through an entire era and stayed behind in its development in cultural and political sense. In the political sense, this region was deprived of political life and pluralism. Parties were banned and civil organizations. Totalitarian regimes pronounced also capital punishment and corruption growth, and the countries lost their vantage point to work for prosperity. In economic sense, the region was hostage of several people who would like to have greater wealth. In cultural plan, we have indicators that are very worrying. Due to the high level of illiteracy and strength fundamentalism, according to the Arab Scientific and Cultural Organization, the number of Muslims who are illiterate in 5 Islamic states is 160 million people, illiterate people. The Islamic world, the level of illiteracy is 40% among men and 60% among women. And this is why the brainwash process is very strong. And young people who are less educated, they can be convinced that terrorist attacks are something that our Prophet wants. In the economic terms, we cannot catch up with Western development. The Eastern societies, who are the cradle of many sciences, are left on the side. The West managed to restrict the powers of the church, and the East relies on the imam and religious leaders who became a factory for fatwas and for solving private and public problems. Hundreds of millions of Arabs were not aware of law and justice, and they didn't know that they can vote their prime minister and their government. And this behavior shows how dangerous the vacuum is of this latitude. The civilization is not owning a laptop or a smartphone or a suit or a tie. Civilization doesn't mean to smell of an expensive perfume. Civilized person is educated person. He can listen to his opponents and doesn't want to stop the conversation with the Kalashnikov or with a grenade. Chekhov says the great people, Nikolai, are the people who respect the human person, and they're always nice and ready to help, and they accept and respect the ownership, the property of others. And the honest people are not pretending. They don't show off, and the clever people keep quiet and develop their aesthetic feelings. Chekhov is Chekhov, and his criteria are very high for many of us, but a nation that is deprived of culture and makes its citizens in enemies and animals that kill each other. There is a great variety of religions, Shia, Sunni, Christians, the followers of the 12 Imams, and many others. And this is richness of heritage, and this is a great diversity of common shared values. But this variety sometimes becomes a curse. If a sect believes that it is the only right one and start punishing the difference if they don't agree to join it. The division of power in the Middle East is an analog of democracy. I mean, there is a quota for each minority in order to be represented in the political life. But this in itself is a salvation of the society and guarantee to public peace. But when you attempt to hegemonize one sect and withdraw the guaranteed rights of the other minorities, we have the prerequisites for civil war. And Syria and Iraq are good examples for that. As regards the Islamic world, this formation as an Islamic world is not close to the Middle East. It happened because of the big clash between Sunni and Shia and the lack of presence of the government. The Islamists and jihadists were using this vacuum and attacked the free zones rich in natural resources, and now they have money, real wealth and ideology that can attract many desperate young people who want some good life and realization. In the ocean, there are fishes that eat other fish, but there are also nice dolphins, not only sharks. And the trend is all over us. We can see the in the closed societies, there are generations that have been deprived of the European way of life, and it is very difficult to integrate these communities. It is always easy for a young person who is disillusioned to start shooting. We saw that in Paris, in Denmark, and in Burgas in Bulgaria. We witnessed also the fact in North Carolina that Arab young people attacked people in the U.S. in North Carolina. So we have clear-cut laws. We have to monitor electronic media that serve the sects in Europe, and in no way are we allowed to risk the achievement of civilization and sacred life here in Europe, and we should divide religion from politics. Before we're talking about terrorism, we need to define clearly this notion at an European and international level. Terrorism is contagious evil, and the reasons for it coming are various, but the integration failing is the main reason for the advance of terrorism. Some of the terrorists have never been religious before, but the void, the lack of employment, the lack of hope for a better life leads to attempting attacks and attempting on their suicidal attacks as well. And this is refusal from the democratic norms in the name of security and stability. This is needed, and this will change the relations in the street, in the working place, the airports, schools, resting homes here on earth and in heaven. And this is going to have an economic aspect because it is expensive to have security measures and financial means. And here it is important to underscore the plan, Juncker plan. This plan is important and it has to mobilize 300 billion euro for the coming years in Europe. This plan is necessary in order to survive and the economy that will have visible results in fighting unemployment, recession, and terrorism. Europe has the full right to protect their interest and the interest of their citizens, to protect human values and democratic norms. Thank you for your attention.
Mr. Hamdan, I told before little time that Mr. Hamdan have a very good, very famous poetry in Bulgaria. Thank you. Сега давам думата на третия.
Now I give the floor to our third speaker on the topics, Mr. Isa Azadeh.
Welcome.
خانم ها، آقایان، نمایندگان محترم پارلمان اروپا، روز بخیر. با تشکر از دعوتی که من و دوستانم را به این جلسه پارلمانی دعوت کردید.
Just a second for the translator. Okay, we have to translate. Okay?
Okay.
Съжалявам, не са ни...
We need little prepare for a conference signal.
Ladies and gentlemen, the member of European Parliament, thank you very much for inviting us today here. And give us this time. My name is Isa Azade. I have been a member of MEK more than 30 years. After Iranian Revolution in 1979, I joined MEK. I was just a student at that time. And for freedom and democracy, I joined this organization. And also the justice and equal right for women and men. And also, I thought that we are joining the democratic organization. In 1980, I was arrested by Iranian security service. And I was in prison for 2 years. In the south side of Iran. And I had under worse torture in my time. After I got free from prison, I could not leave the country, and I had been sentenced to death, and I could not work in any government job. The organization of MEK, they find me in Iran. And they and they smuggle me from Iran. And they smuggle me from Iran to Iraq. I was in Iraq for 27 years. All this time, in 27 years, in the worst country because of war and bombardment, we could have been killed anytime. According to the United Nations contract in Iraq, Mujahideen left the main base in Ashraf camp to another camp near Baghdad called Liberty. I was as a member of MEK in the first group, which we were 400 people. We have been transferred from Camp Ashraf to Liberty. More than 1 year I was in Camp Liberty. I was the head of security and security of the camp. For the first time, the international organization came to the camp. United Nations. Yeah, as I said, it was the first time that they could come to the camp. Before that, we have been under segregation for all these years. During when Saddam Hussein was in power, it means before 2003. No one ever could come to the camp Mujahideen except the lobbyists. And none of us could talk to anyone else outside Camp Ashraf. Maybe it's hard to believe what I want to tell you. It will be hard to understand because you live here in 21st century. Believe that with my degree as a PhD, I haven't seen mobile cell phone till a year ago. It was the first time I see cell phone, it was a year ago. I never have seen any newspaper since 27 years that I was there. I am talking with you. I have been a known person. Everybody in MEK knows me. I am a refugee to French government. Since a year ago, I haven't seen no TV, no internet, nothing. Internet is a big crime in MEK. If someone is looking for it or searching to use it or even talk about it. Because this oppression and depression in organization, because of dictatorship of the leader Rajavi, that he had it in place in organization, it was a very bad atmosphere, and the people were not agree with that. In 1985, it's about 20 years ago. In direct order of Masur Rajavi, the leader of cult, about 700 of the commander and the member of PMO, the MEK, was arrested. And the prison were inside the Camp Ashraf. The solitary confinement without any kind of having any kind of anything. There were nothing in the solitary confinement, and we had the minimum needs in there. As a ex-commander in MEK, I had objected to this situation, and I told him we were university student, and we came from Europe, Canada, Australia, and US, and Iran for freedom and democracy, and overthrow the Iranian government. And that was the main reason we joined this organization. Iranian government would have executed us and put us in prison. Why we have the same treatment here in organization that we came here as a volunteer? Why you torture us here too? Why do you do the same thing to us? Is that our sin that we left our university and our life in Europe and we came here to join you? If that was our sin, we don't want you no more, and we have enough. And we want to get out of this situation and get out of this organization. What do you think they done to me? At night, with the security system. The security forces at night arrested me, took me to the prison for torture. There were few of security agents that they had a mask on their face. They gave me a paper and told me to sign this paper that indicate that I am the member of Iranian security service. And I infiltrated to Mujahideen. That's very funny. That was very funny. That was a joke. I was in prison, tortured, and escaped from Iran. And now the organization wants me to sign a paper that I'm the Iranian agent. What was the reason? Because we were objected to what he was doing in the organization. He wanted to do the same that Stalin, the same thing he wanted to do that to us. And he wanted to have this paper, that fake paper. So he has an excuse that he could continue to torture us. Of course, I never done that, never signed it. More than 10 of my friends that they were like me, and they were all educated in university. They have been killed and tortured in their prison. And no one knows anything about them. Some of them were tortured. And after all these years, they could get out of that cult, and they reach to Europe, and they live here now. I myself was in prison for 3 months by Rajavi in Ashraf camp. After I got released from prison, in the fake show, Mr. Rajavi took us to his special places that he had in Iraq, near Baghdad. And face to face, he told us what happened inside organization is it should not get outside this organization. No one should know about what happened here, even inside organization. Of course, we were in Iraq and we had no contact whatsoever with outside world. Believe us, I never thought, he said, I never thought I could ever say these things to other outside world, like today that I am sitting here in front of you. But today, with help of Mr. Bracco and you all, they gave us this time and this opportunity to say and to hear our even a little voice of us that we can say. And what we went through and the suffer and torture that we went through, we can talk to you about that. I can cut it to chase. I only want to say, for example, I just want to say that in this parliament, to say to tell you a schedule only for one day that we had in Camp Ashraf. Ladies and gentlemen, all of us in Camp Ashraf, even all the MEK members, even in Europe, that they live in Europe, even in Europe, they live like soldiers, and they wake up. They wake up at the same time. They wake up, and at the same time, they all go to sleep. No one could stay awake after this time. It starts at 5 o'clock in the morning. Start from 5 o'clock to 11 o'clock at night. Every single day. Every single one has to report and schedule every single hour of every single person. Even when they have time for breakfast, which is 15 minutes. For lunch, 1 hour. For dinner, it's 1 hour. 1 hour a day we have do the sport and exercise. The rest of it is like slavery. We have just working, and most important part is the session that we have for brainwashed. An ideology session, and the organization is and the organization right now transfer to the cult, and they put the leader cult as a god.
Interpretation. After the Cold War, the world started facing violence out of geopolitical or religious reasons. The Cold War changed into wars against the dictator. The West has defined as the strongest enemy the terrorism. There are many definitions of terrorism. Most of them are derived from the etymology, from the Latin language, terror meaning fear. Because of the dynamic processes and the different motivation of the participants and the variety of religious backgrounds, the West has difficulty to have generally valid definition. This is the authors of the terror and the victims of the terror. It depends, the definition depends on the vision of civilization. Western notion for civilized society is goes through the Christian values. The West goes through many catharses in changes of society. In the ancient times, when the Christian religion started, many people who were not necessarily believers set the foundations for this civilization. The East has different system. The first thing is that in the East, people did not depend on the ideologists, but depend on the books. In the West, there is a special interpretation of the clergy. In the East, the prophet has no intermediary to the believers. And this is also valid for every place where Islam is existing. Christianity has transcontinental development, and Islam has territorial restriction. Although both religions have very long geopolitical history, this happens in the countries to the day. One of the big differentiators in civilization is the interpretation of the Middle East geographically. Of the G8 says that Middle East is Afghanistan and Pakistan, and the people in the Middle East believe that Afghanistan and Pakistan are not parts of the Middle East. In order to analyze terror over the past 20 years, it is necessary to see beyond the traditional points of view, doubting, like Descartes, everything. On the one hand, terror achieves its goal by planting hatred and fights the patronizing attitude of the West to the East, and sets under question the future of the relations between the states. In the context of the EU members, there is overconfidence of freedom and human rights, which sometimes go contrary to the Eastern feelings of inferiority that sometimes goes to extreme dimensions. Unlike the pragmatic society of the West, where the church is fighting science, in the East you cannot have an equality between the notions of the believer and the religion, and this is used for political and economic purpose. The rights are defended by force everywhere. The right to have state and territory is a result of contradictions that attracts the attention economically and politically of the big players. And here you have to distinguish between the original right of freedom and the right to induce hatred for illegitimate reasons. And this is why it is the illegitimate that is part of the terrorism definition. This has to be eradicated with all the necessary means, and thanks to the wide access to information, everyone can make their own analysis. The governments see the policy as something that needs to be more efficient, because for 15 years there hadn't been no stronger attack than the attack in New York. On the other hand, the terrorists are using the weaknesses of the Western society and the evolution in the media. Everyone can become a media. Every person can become a media. And people use the individual mistake and the lack of possibility to give full freedom. And this is why the Islamic State tactics that attracts kindred spirits without having to train them, and pseudo positions that are against the world can be also single personalities. Undoubtedly, the only way of the West to tackle this process is to increase the force measures against organizers of terrorists. But this is follow-up. Wiretapping, surveillance can only work for certain situations. They cannot resolve the issue, and they cannot counter its massive nature because of the different notion of civilization. Here, the different interpretation of religion and making the religion a cult, and people start having other people's thoughts as their own. And there are different attempts of isolated communities to focus the attention on them. It is proven historically that a happy society does not need revolution, does not need force. They proclaim their values, and this is the Roman Empire. Many people wanted to be delivered because they wanted a predictable life. And in political, this is the same. And the economic expansion is one of the main characteristics of the current world. Increasing the living standard, access to information, and cultural heritage, and possibility for free movement are the most efficient means to make things more safe. And ethnic contradictions here are only temporary, and it is something that does not need to go ahead with physical victims. The economic expansion of the West to the East has to take into account the individual features of each society, and it has to take into account the religions and the nuances of religions. The stronger states, including the ones from the European Union, view the natural resources in a longer term, so that they are not goal at any price. And fighting terrorism has to go at a different level, where the minorities has to be involved in order to attain their well-being. The economic links between the East and the West have to be not only by selling and buying resources. These relations has to be seen as a long-term vision for peace and better life of everyone in the society, without neglecting any minority. And here the major thing is the balance between the use of resources and the development of the economic sectors in the Arab Peninsula. Every European state has tolerant attitude towards the minorities, which opens the door for missionaries' activities. It is possible to have super intellectuals who might see this as a threat to the identity and sovereignty. But if we have clear-cut rules in big unions like the European Union, this danger can be eradicated. So we have to change the defects into effects, or educate, or some explanation of fear. And finally, let us remind ourselves the Persian philosopher Avicenna. If we don't make our path to the hearts of the people, people will not talk to us. This is what Avicenna said. Thank you very much.
Now is a speaker, Mr. Hussein Nژاد. Welcome, Mr. Nژاد.
با سلام و تشکر از حضار محترم نمایندگان پارلمان اروپا، مخصوصاً
Excuse me, 1 second. We continue in a...
From Ashraf to Liberty in Iraq, in Baghdad, I could get out of this organization by help of the United Nations monitoring in Camp Ashraf and Iraq. I, as like ex-member of MEK, and I was the candidate after 1979 revolution as a member of Iranian parliament. I would like to let you know that this organization, this it not has been an organization, a political organization for freedom and democracy in Iran. And the permanent leader, permanent leader of organization, from 35 years ago till now, he transferred the organization to the cult with manipulation and brainwashed. Which is against any kind of norm, the international norm and human being norms. The leader of this organization for his own security and organization, he is insisted to keep these people in Iraq. Right. He's trying to keep these people in Iraq. He doesn't let anybody in organization to have to meet with their family that they haven't seen for years, not even with letter or a phone call. In the communication century, that everybody could contact their own family. But he doesn't let us to contact our families. And we cannot use internet or newspaper or cell phone or TV channel. And even listening to radio or reading a book. We cannot have this one, and this is forbidden for every single one of us. This cult could keep these 2,000 people in Iraq without any contact with outside world. And this distance is not only it's not in a deserted area, it's in the Iraq that everybody every day talk about it. It's in Iraq. And helping and surviving and saving these people, it's a responsibility for United Nations and international body. From Ashraf to liberty in Iraq, in Baghdad, I could get out of this organization by help of the United Nations monitoring in Camp Ashraf and Iraq. I, as like ex-member of MEK, and I was the candidate after 1979 revolution as a member of Iranian parliament. I would like to let you know that this organization, it not has been an organization, a political organization for freedom and democracy in Iran. And the permanent leader, permanent leader of organization, from 35 years ago till now, he transferred the organization to the cult with manipulation and brainwashed. Which is against any kind of norm, the international norm and human being norms. The leader of this organization for his own security and organization, he is insisted to keep these people in Iraq. Right. He's trying to keep these people in Iraq. He doesn't let anybody in organization to have to meet with their family that they haven't seen for years, not even with letter or a phone call. In the communication century, that everybody could contact their own family. But he doesn't let us to contact our families. And we cannot use internet or newspaper or cell phone or TV channel. And even listening to radio or reading a book. We cannot have this one, and this is forbidden for every single one of us. This cult could keep these 2,000 people in Iraq without any contact with outside world. And this distance is not only it's not in a deserted area, it's in the Iraq that everybody every day talk about it. It's in Iraq. And helping and surviving and saving these people, it's a responsibility for United Nations and international body. The member of MEP and European Parliament, the cult called MEK and Mujahideen Khalq, it's never let me see my own daughter, which she is 36 years old. Okay, 20 years ago, when she had only 17 years old, they transfer her from Paris to Ashraf camp And even though we both were in Iraq and Camp Ashraf, we could only once a year in Iranian New Year, we could only 1 to 2 hours meet each other and talk. Three years ago, for the New Year's, they didn't let us to meet, and they disconnect that. And I haven't seen my daughter for over 4 years. She's still in Ashraf camp. I haven't had any word from her, and I don't know what happened to her. Not a telephone call, not letter, not Skype, not anything. I cannot contact her. I sent a lot of letter to the United Nations leadership and headquarters in Iraq. And I tried to get the letter to give it to my daughter. And the representative of the UNAMI, United Nations, to give the letter to my daughter. But they said that the leadership didn't let us to give the letter to them. And they didn't take the letter. The United Nations High Commissioner for Refugee and UNAMI in Iraq. I request them to let me visit my daughter. But the Mujahideen didn't let me. And they said that my daughter doesn't want to meet me. Last month, my letter, Mr. Mladiov, the representative of the United Nations in Iraq, took my letter to Liberty Camp, and they asked for my daughter. But they said that they not take the letter. And this is the leadership that led them, that ordered them that you cannot have any contact whatsoever with your family. When I was in camp and I meet with my daughter, I could never talk to my daughter freely because they were always the security member around us. I requested so many times that I want to meet my daughter, but the organization didn't accept it. And they said to the UNAMI that she doesn't want it. This is a cult. They were brainwashed and they listened to leadership, whatever they said. The member of MEP and European Parliament, the cult called MEK and Mujahideen Khalq, it's never let me see my own daughter, which she is 36 years old. 20 years ago, when she had only 17 years old, they transferred her from Paris to Ashraf camp. And even though we both were in Iraq and Camp Ashraf, we could only once a year in Iranian New Year, we could only 1 to 2 hours meet each other and talk. Three years ago, for the New Year's, they didn't let us to meet, and they disconnect that. And I haven't seen my daughter for over 4 years. She's still in Ashraf camp. I haven't had any word from her, and I don't know what happened to her. Not the telephone call, not letter, not Skype, not anything. I cannot contact her. I sent a lot of letters to the United Nations leadership and headquarters in Iraq. And I tried to get the letter to give it to my daughter. And the representative of the UNAMI, United Nations, to give the letter to my daughter. But they said that the leadership didn't let us to give the letter to them. And they didn't take the letter. The United Nations High Commissioner for Refugee and UNAMI in Iraq. I request them to let me visit my daughter. But the Mujahideen didn't let me. And they said that my daughter doesn't want to meet me. Last month, my letter, Mr. Muladiov, the representative of the United Nations in Iraq, took my letter to Liberty Camp, and they asked for my daughter. But they said that they not take the letter. And this is the leadership that led them, that ordered them that you cannot have any contact whatsoever with your family. When I was in camp and I meet with my daughter, I could never talk to my daughter freely because they were always the security member around us. I requested so many times that I want to meet my daughter, but the organization didn't accept it. And they said to the UNAMI that she doesn't want it. This is a cult. They were brainwashed and they listened to leadership, whatever they said. As long as they are in organization, because they scared, and at the meantime they were brainwashed. And as long as they are there, they cannot they cannot say whatever they want. My younger daughter lives in Iran. She could visit me after I got out of MEK. I could meet her for the first time after 30 years. She was in Baghdad in 2 weeks with me, and she requested from United Nations to visit her sister for the first time in Iraq. She even went to the Liberty camp. Went there to request from MEK members to let her to visit her sister for 1 minute after 30 years. For 30 years. But they didn't let her. I am requested from European Parliament, this Maryam Rajavi that comes to this Parliament so many times, that I am surprised why this Parliament let a cult and terrorist organization leader comes to this Parliament, and she is allies with the Daesh, and you have to ask this, why they don't let these two sisters, that one is 36, one 34, they never met each other. Why they don't let her to contact with her sister in Iran? Even when she went to the Liberty camp, they didn't let her to meet for 1 minute. In this, how is possible these days that two people cannot contact each other by phone or by any other communication? How is possible? Because this cult, this terrorist organization, they don't want, they have any contact with their family and outside world. I am, as an member of MEK and the senior translator of the leadership and the organization that was translated from Farsi to Arabic and Arabic to Farsi. I was witnesses of so many statements, fake statements, and fake signature of millions of Iraqis that they write it in Farsi, and I translate it to Arabic, and they made up names, Arabic names, to support this organization and to meddling within Iraqi's government. And they wanted to establish whatever they could against Iraqi's government. And this meddling in Iraq affair after 10 years, for these past 10 years, and the terrorist activity that they have with the Saddam Hussein and their security system, Mujahideen, they lost their support that they used to have in Iran. And with the meddling in Iraq, they made the other Iraqis to attack Ashraf, and they killed a lot of the MEK member because they were meddling in Iraq's affairs. No. And these cult, whatever they done, it's in the benefit of Iranian government. I just want to save my daughter and the rest of people that they are in Iraq, and especially my daughter that has the refugee status in Paris, in France. And we wanted to transfer these 2,000 people that they are held in Iraq to other country, to safe place. And we ask you to help to save these people. And I want to appreciate you once more that listen to what we have to say. Thank you very much.
Engagement, I will keep in touch with my good friends Mr. Nikolai Mladenov for this is personality casus in the Ashraf camp. Like Eurodeputat, I have engagement that investigates this case. This is very interesting case. I understand that your former organization, MQO, in this moment maybe have very big problem with human rights, with ideology, with identification. Maybe this organization have a very, very big, very deep difference between former member in this organization. We don't have any time. We have 10 minutes. Yes, I know. But we have, this is how until 11:30. But the media, the journalists have a very big interesting maybe for this story. And we have a question from media, maybe for you. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Colin Stevens from EU Reporter. I have two questions, one for Nikolai and one for our guests from Iran. Nikolai, those of us who report the affairs of the European Parliament on a regular basis often see Maryam Rajavi visit the Parliament and be accorded almost the same treatment as a head of state. Why is this? If the leaders of ISIS or any other terrorist organization attended the Parliament, they wouldn't get the same. What is the reason for this? I mean, is there any difference between, Maryam coming as the NCRI, the National Council for Resistance or Iran, or the MEK? Why was the NCRI removed from the blacklist of banned organizations, so it's now respectable? And also another question, why is it allowed to transmit a television channel, SEMA TV, from Europe to the Middle East, spreading its message? Sorry, that's my first question for Nikolai. And my simple question for our guests from Iran is, which is worse? Is it the government of Iran or the NCRI? That's my question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Colin. But because this is question, very strong political question for me, I prefer that my answer is my born language, Bulgaria. We have a very good, wonderful translate. Thank you.
I am a new MEP. I've been in office for the past 6 months, and it is really hard for me to give an answer why Madame Rajavi has been treated like a head of state in the European Parliament. I will not disguise the fact that when we announced this conference today, we were contacted by her. She requested a meeting. She wanted to meet me as an MEP, as a member of the Iran group. I would not say no to such a meeting, but in my private capacity, I will never treat her like a head of state, because it is an opposition organization which many facts are part of, many details. I had meetings with media, NGOs, analysts, including ambassadors of Iran to Sofia and to Brussels. And I gathered many concerning facts about terrorist acts carried out by this organization. What I hear today is yet another point of view. Okay, this might be an echo, far echo from what is happening in the Middle East. But I wanted to provide the European Parliament and you journalists with a full picture of the extremely interesting and dramatic events which we had coming to us in France, Belgium, and Germany and Denmark. As an MEP, I'm going to follow up this process very closely. I will not refuse communication to any of the parties. I'm open to dialogue. I'm ready to take and analyze all points of view. Being a former journalist, I want to have all the facts established on one issue. And let me finish with the fact that there is two sides to this question. The one side is the political. What kind of Iran do we have today? And what kind of Iran do we want to have in the future? How will we have the negotiations of the G6 about the nuclear program of Iran, and how to solve the knot of problems: religious, cultural, social, economic, political, and even problems of identity of this region in the world. We have 3 states which today function as territories or restricted territories of their governments. This is Syria, this is Iraq, naturally, and Afghanistan. These are countries where governments are only in charge of part of their territory. The rest of the territory has been infested with the cancer of several organizations. And the policy of the great powers over the past 100 years now bears fruit. Bulgaria is almost bordering these states. We are the bridge of Europe. We are on the way to terrorism, so to speak. The second problem is the problem of personal tragedies of these people. We heard 2 personal stories of divided families, of people who live in total disrespect to their human rights in the 21st century, and unfortunately this is done by legitimate organizations. And it is very good that this I know that Ashraf was under the jurisdiction of NATO, and there were security forces, including Bulgaria, had a contingent of military contingent providing security to this Ashraf camp. But we don't know what happens beyond the fence of this camp. We don't know what happens inside the camp. And even terrorists live in this camp. They have the rights to have normal, albeit prisoners' rights, but they do have rights as well, human rights. Thank you for the question. What I can say indeed that I'm going to have a close follow-up on this problem. And in my capacity as an MEP, I would like to abide a principle of the European Parliament that everyone can feel free to speak here on the premises of the European Parliament. No one has to be given more privileges just because they come from a European country. In addition to being in charge of 500 million of population, the European Parliament is one of the largest parliaments in the world, and we have to generate messages to all continents to send signals to all people who are seeking for freedom and rights, not in their own countries, in Iran, Iraq, or Syria, but here in Europe, in Belgium. And even I heard that these people are ready to go and live in Albania. Albania is okay outside the European Union. Thank you. I would like to give the floor to one of our guests to give an answer to the other question.
One is the worst. Recently, Rajavi, the leader, on the 16th of November 2014, on a video conference, which is available on YouTube. I've got it here, and this is a short translation of his statement that I've read, and I'll give you the explanation. He's saying, we must deceive the West about this statement is just a few months ago. It is broadcasted in the West. We must deceive the West about our true nature, the strategy of dealing with enemies, rules to deal with them one at a time. First, the home enemy, then when we have the power, comes the next enemy, imperialist, the war West. That would be our glorious revolution and victory. So tactically, we must take liberal positions to deceive and neutralize the next coming enemies. We must not only work hard to prevent our enemies from uniting against us, but we must even utilize them to defeat our home enemy. It was astonishing that in our recent message, you repeated the same exact words. This is my words to him, that UN and UNAMI, sorry, it is my will, that is the continuation, it is my will that all our opponents must be punished. The days of the oppressed against the oppressor will arrive. The United Nations and the UNAMI are all working for the ruling governments. The human rights issues are worthless words and are only good for composition. The human rights will be written with blood of the oppressed. The demarcation between us and the reactionaries, the colonialists, those working in line with them and helping them, is with blood. Our diplomatic work and endeavour are all for preparation for the fire of the war. This regime will not be toppled by US and UNAMI and their cooperators. US and UNAMI's hands are in the hands of the Iranian regime. As we are working with UNAMI and US and human rights organizations, we do not believe in what they are doing, and we know that we have to deal with our problems ourselves, that is through war and blood and revolution, as there is a sea of blood between us and the enemy. Let me repeat, if you are working with the United Nations and the United States, this is only because we want to prepare for the war. This is Rajavi's statement to his followers. But coming back to the question is that when there is problems with government, you know who you are dealing with. You can put pressure, for instance, diplomatic, economic, and you can hold them responsible for what they are doing, what they are saying, for their actions. But with the terrorist groups, you can't hold them for the actions. They can act everywhere, as we are witnessing to these days, right? And especially, I have been in this organization for 40 years. I know Iranians, our government. I know the organization. This organization is so complex and sophisticated that they can utilize, and they are utilizing, as referring to your question, that why is Maryam Rajavi is being treated as a head of a state, is because of the capability of the terrorist group that is utilizing every means that in order to reach power, like ISIS, in order to show their face. And this is the statement. I can give you the video, and you can translate it with an independent translation. So that is what we are facing these days. The main threat, threat of the democracy and freedom is not from the government nowadays. It is now from the terrorist organizations which are spreading all over the world. And my friend's facts showed how they utilize their members to do anything they want. They cut them off from outside world, and then they bombard them with whatever they want to tell them, with Islam, with everything they want to tell them against Western democracy. And then they are prepared for whatever they can do, as we witnessed in Paris, self-immolation. Not one, not two. The two women died due to that, and 10 to 12 were still they are suffering from their injuries. This can very simply happen against others. When you can do it to yourself, you can do it to others too. The only reason, this is my absolute knowledge, it's not that I do not, this is not an analysis. The reason that the order was to act this against the members themselves is because Maryam Rajavi is there and can be held responsible. Or if she wasn't there, it will be these terrorist acts would be against the European citizens because they are retaliating. And why? I mean, I have been educated in the United Kingdom. They have used me for years. All my friends, all those who we have joined, we have set example, the European democracy, in order to achieve that for our children, for our people.
Thank you. One more question, but we have one more question.
Yes, Philippe Lamer. I was really impressed what I hear this morning. I have a short question who needs a short answer because I think time is running. For former member of the Mujahideen, what are the relations with Iran? Is there an amnesty for the former member of the Mujahideen? Are they able to go back to Iran or not? Thank you.
The Iranian regime has announced that they are prepared. They want to only put 35 names. I think they have raised the 35 names that they must be held responsible for their actions. But the rest of the members have been given amnesty. This is short and brief.
Thank you for that. I will talk like a member in the delegation for relationship between the European Parliament and Iran. I see that we have many issues, problems with human rights, with new government in Iran and Middle East, but I deep believe that our method for action will be peacefully and balanced. In my delegation, I guarantee we have balance for a relationship with Iran government and Iran opposition. Thank you. Thank you very much.